What's up, guys? This is Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, and the broader markets. I'm going to break down some important news that came out involving Tesla, what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward heading into tomorrow, and why Tesla may get a temporary bounce from here before more potential downside, which could be another big buying opportunity for the end of the year. So I'll give you guys more insights about this. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link that's down below, or use my QR code right here to sign up. If you sign up for Moomoo with the link down below and deposit $100, you're going to get $20 of free Nvidia stock. If you deposit $2,000, you're going to get $50 worth of Nvidia. Deposits $10,000 to get $300 worth of the stock, or deposits $50,000 to get $1,000 of free Nvidia. You're also going to qualify for a 3.6% APY base rate plus a 4.5% APY extra for 3 months, making it a total of an 8.1% APY. The offer ends very soon, so please check out my link down below to sign up, or use my QR code right here. There's only 1 week left for the offer. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So as far as Tesla's going, we're watching the possibility of this left shoulder-like pattern. This is going to be like a head, and we're going to see if Tesla has basically gotten ready to form this right shoulder. Even if we bounce a little bit from here, we're going to be watching more possible downside. And if we are lucky, if we do see Tesla dip like this, maybe after FOMC or whatever the factor is, it could be a buying opportunity for an end of the year squeeze. This is just a possibility. So I'm going to talk more about the levels on Tesla. I do think that Tesla dipped quite a bit today after some negative news came out from Morgan Stanley, but it is trying to rebound near our 50 EMA, and we could be looking for a retest of 444 to 450. And then we'll see if Tesla makes a lower high, but there could be some kind of temporary bounce. Now, on the daily time frame, we're going to see if this goes a little bit higher before it turns back down, but overall, there is potential in my opinion, and I think that Tesla's doing a great job. On the SPY charts, I also think that we're trying to rebound a little bit as well. Yes, we dumped quite a bit today. It wasn't that massive. It was quite a bit of a dump. But now we're going to see if we rebound off our 20 EMA to temporarily bounce, and then we're going to see if we make a lower high before we fall again. So I'll talk more about that in just a couple of minutes for SPY and the QQQ. And then this will have some kind of like ripple effect on Tesla. The whole market came down, which also contributed to this bearish move before we see some kind of bounce as well. So what's happening with Tesla news? What are the pieces of data telling us? And then I'll talk about the charts. Let's first talk about this. So there's been some news that came out that the Tesla Optimus robot has fallen over, and it's getting a lot of criticism for that. Here's the thing. The mainstream media loves to basically scream at Tesla and criticize it because it appears that this was like teleoperated at an event. Yes, I agree with that. If you watch the video and see it, it looked like it was just kind of like handing out drinks and just fell over, unfortunately. I think the video is somewhere down here. I'd have to look for it, but you guys could see it essentially. It was basically just like standing over, and then it just fell over, just fell backwards like that. So, of course, the mainstream media is going to love to criticize Tesla, attack it for this, and that is what typically happens. However, I'm just here to tell you guys that Optimus is making more progress when it comes to development. Tesla, however, has to redesign the hands. They have to do all kinds of different things to get this out there. Optimus is not going to be just in mass production tomorrow. It's going to take a while for them to get everything together. For the long term, this is very bullish for Tesla, but for the short term, there's still a lot of things Tesla has to get past. So, of course, there's going to be days when FSD makes a mistake. There's going to be days when the Optimus robot has to be teleoperated, may even make mistakes. It's going to happen. This is all part of the process. And instead of just kind of attacking Tesla, screaming over it, like I hear people on the internet doing sometimes, we have to give them credit they deserve because they are working towards something that's very bullish, and this will eventually generate billions, if not trillions of dollars for the company. So I admit that, yes, FSD is not perfect. Tesla's technology is not perfect yet, but they're improving every single day, and eventually it's going to be very, very lucrative for the company. Now, why did Tesla stock end up dropping? Well, we had some negative news that came out from Morgan Stanley. We had a new analyst that was talking about how he says that Tesla's overall business model is not just about automobiles, but it's also about the development of AI and such. But he believes that much of that has been priced in. So for that reason, we're seeing Morgan Stanley downgrade Tesla from a buy rating to a hold rating. And they did raise their target from $410 to about $425, but now their rating is hold. So you can see right here, his rating is hold. He's saying hold on to Tesla. He's not recommending buying at these levels because much of it has been priced in. He also believes that there's a lot of upside for the longer term, but for the short term, he recommends holding at these levels. He also talked about how there are some, issues with Tesla's sales that are going on, and this could be affecting their overall growth for next year, and there might be some fluctuations because of that. So that's what we heard from Morgan Stanley. That is the reason why we saw Tesla stock drop quite a bit. At least that's one of the reasons. Now, there's also been some news coming out from Elon Musk that Tesla drivers will soon be able to turn to Grok for directions, whether it's if there's a wrong turn that's been made or if they want to use it just for new features. That's another upgrade that's coming out. Grok with navigation commands. Just wanted to highlight that. Very cool stuff, but overall, Tesla stock still dropped quite a bit. In my previous videos, I said Tesla would likely reject near 460. We did get lots of rejections, and lo and behold, we got the rejections so far. We could bounce a bit, but then we're going to see if we get another rejection. On top of this, Mizuho gave Tesla an outperform rating, and then the price price ratio, it kind of like pumped, and now it's kind of like dipping a little bit, which shows that Tesla's losing some strength. And then when it comes to our seasonality, keep in mind that 51 percent of the time on Tuesdays, Tesla tends to be green. It's kind of like a 50-50 day. Not the strongest of days. December tends to not be the strongest of months for Tesla, but January tends to be a lot stronger. And I do expect a very strong end of the year and early January for Tesla. And then when it comes to news for tomorrow, just want to give you guys a reminder. Tomorrow is Tuesday, December 9th. At 8:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the ADP employment change coming out. Then at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the JOLTS job openings and job quits. This is delayed data for the months of September and October, so it's not up to date because of the government shutdown, but we'll see if this causes any more volatility or not. So keep that in mind. That's also going to be very important. So watch and see what that leads to, at least moving forward. I do expect some volatility in the upcoming days, and we're going to see what that leads to when Tesla has these new job numbers. On top of this, when it comes to the Fed, what happens with these job numbers is going to be affecting the target rate probabilities. This will increase how much the bonds market prices in the chance of us getting a cut or not. There's an 87% chance we get a 25 basis point cut right now. This could be adjusted depending on the jobs numbers, so remember that. And then when it comes to the Fed's buybacks, we have another moment on December 10th when the Fed's going to be buying back more of these treasuries. That's very bullish for the end of the year and for next year. But for the short term, we're going to see if the market pulls back a bit before we end up getting a bigger bounce. And I'll talk more about the numbers in just a couple of minutes. The Fed's buying back more. We'll see if this is adjusted and reflects on our overnight repurchases as well. And last but not least, we just have a couple of earnings. We have like GameStop tomorrow, AutoZone, and lots of retail. For Wednesday, we have Chewy and Oracle. Oracle's going to be a big one for the week. And for Thursday, we have just a couple of them in the morning alongside Broadcom and then Costco, which is the biggest retail one. So Wednesday and Thursday are kind of big for earnings. We have Oracle and Costco, and that's pretty much it. Last but not least, fear makes up the majority of sentiment, but fear is subsiding to some extent. Momentum is at fear. We're going to see if that slows down. The put to call option ratio is at fear. We're going to see if we bounce there or not. Then the VIX is at neutral. We're going to see how that ends up going. So that being said, what do I think is going to happen to Tesla in the markets? Well, if we're bearish on Tesla stock, just hypothetically, I want to see us close below our 50 EMA at 433. If we lose 433, I think Tesla could be dipping down closer to like the 420s. I would not rule out the possibility of dipping as low as for like 425 if that ends up being the case. If we're bullish on Tesla, just hypothetically, you want to see Tesla basically not just hold above 442, but I want to see us reclaim like 450. If we hold 450, we're looking for the gap fill back up to 455 or 460. So that's the more bullish case. I think when you look at the charts, okay, there's going to be some sideways price action going on Tesla. We are still looking for the possibility of this inverse head and shoulders, a left shoulder here. This is kind of like our head, the double bottom. And we're going to see if we form kind of like a bounce. If we make a lower high on Tesla, we could be still forming that right shoulder. And then we're going to see if we get a massive bounce after that. But basically, what I'm saying is that we could be making a lower high and we could see a slight downtrend just temporarily before the end of the year squeeze. It might just happen temporarily, right? Tesla could drop in a flash. Look how fast we went from basically 460 all the way down to 435 within a day. So it's just quick volatility. It's not like this is a forever thing. I think tomorrow we bounce. This is my prediction. We bounce for 442. If that breaks, we're looking for 445, then maybe 450. But my concern is that we might be making a lower high. I'm not sure if we come back up to fill this gap. If we make a lower high, then this could be a lower high rejection, and then Tesla could still be at risk of dipping back down towards the low 430s or below. And then we'll see if this inverse head and shoulders leads to some kind of bounce. We have kind of like an inverse head and shoulders forming, and that could lead to a nice rebound move, especially as time goes on. I'll be watching that very, very closely. But with that being said, we're going to see what happens as time goes on, and we're going to see what happens once we approach that 442 area. So look for a bounce back up to 442 to 445, and then we're going to see if we could get close to 450 before we see a rejection. But I think there's going to be a temporary bounce tomorrow as the most likely possibility for the markets and Tesla. On SPY, I noticed something very interesting. So just like Tesla, we have kind of like an inverse head and shoulders like pattern on SPY. Just to be frank, this is like the left shoulder head. And then we're going to see if we form a right shoulder before we try to see some kind of bounce for the overall pattern, right? Our key fib level, our golden pocket aligns with where I marked the right shoulder, just like that. So that's based off our Fibonacci retracement area. Now, before we dip to form that right shoulder, we could see a small bounce tomorrow. We could be going back up to 685 to 686, a small bounce, consolidation like this, and then we're going to see if we get a rejection. If we make a lower high, we're looking for this bearish divergence to pan out. And I do think 675 is coming in the upcoming days or within a week from now. On the QQQ, I'm seeing something very similar developing, right? If you look at the QQQ, we've been trying to climb higher, but notice that like SPY, we have this inverse head and shoulders. We have a left shoulder, we have a head, then we have a possible right shoulder, and that could lead to a big bounce. Now, overall, we're going to be watching to see if this is like a double top rejection off this bearish divergence. And if we go a little bit higher, I do think we bounce tomorrow. So tomorrow, if you want to be really bearish, you want to see 618 fail us, the lows we saw from Wednesday. If that fails us, we're looking for a bigger move down. And for bullish, you want to break 630, but I think we temporarily bounce for 625 or so, 625 to 626, then we could be making a lower high and rejecting back down to 618. So look for a temporary bounce, and we'll see if we turn back down. So give this the time it needs. On the IWM, we basically have 252 as our resistance. We rejected, and we've rejected many times off that. We're going to see if 252 breaks. If not, we could be looking for a move back down to 249. So this might be dipping to 249, and we'll see if we end up bouncing. But overall, this could be very important. We have a triple top here, and we could be dipping to 249 on the IWM as we love to reject off 252. So keep that in mind. On ES, I'm noticing something very interesting. So notice how we have a very, very nice looking structure for an inverse head and shoulders. This looks like a left shoulder. See, this is where we rejected off 6,900 to form that head, and we came exactly to that resistance and we're starting to reject. So we need to break 6,900 to be bullish. If we don't, even if we bounce a little bit tomorrow for like 68.80, if we make a lower high, we could continue to fall from that right shoulder before we try to bounce for a very nice inverse head and shoulders. So I would not be surprised if we bounce a little bit tomorrow for 68.80, make a lower high. If we make a lower high compared to this high here, we're looking for a left shoulder head and then a right shoulder, and that could take us right back down towards 6,800 or so. So keep that in mind. On NQ, we have something else that's very similar that's going on. We have a left shoulder head and a right shoulder forming. We're going to see what that leads to. This is like a left shoulder. This is like a head, and this is going to be like a possible right shoulder for us to form an inverse head and shoulders. We also have a double top rejection, so this kind of looks like a left shoulder over here. This is like a head, and then this is going to be our right shoulder, leading to a potential rejection back down. Overall, though, I think there's a double top rejection forming. This could take us even lower, so watch that very closely. So watch this very closely as we try to bounce for 25,700. We might be kind of consolidating and turning back down to towards 25,500. Bitcoin is also trending sideways right now. We have resistance around 92,000, support down here at 88,000. We're going to likely continue to consolidate, and we'll see if we get a rejection. Tesla is once again trying to bounce, and we'll see if we form a lower high or not. But overall, we're looking for 442.5 as our resistance, and we'll see what happens at least from here. We have 442.5 to 445 as a resistance to be tested. I think we bounce a little bit, and we'll see if we get a rejection. What else could help the market bounce is Nvda. So one problem with Nvda is that every time we're breaking out, we reject, we bounce and reject, bounce and reject. In this case, we're trying to bounce. I think we could try to go higher if we could hold above 190, but then we're going to see if we get a rejection near 195 and turn back down towards 182. That could be like a pump and dump move. Aapl is showing some weakness. We kind of pumped and rejected. We're watching to see if we form a left shoulder, head and right shoulder. That could be a sign we kind of bounce and consolidate before we start dipping back down towards 270. On Netflix, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We might bounce a little bit back up towards 98, and we'll see if we get a rejection or not from here. MSTR is kind of like in the middle. We're looking for an attempt for 186 service resistance and 182 as our support. I expect this to consolidate a bit, but there's a risk of some downside. Celsius, however, looks more bullish, inverse head and shoulders, looking for an attempt to get back up to 45 or so for some temporary upside. Supermicro looks a bit more bullish to me. Nice accumulation. I think it's going for this high over here around 36.5, then eventually 37.5 for some temporary upside. Palantir is consolidating. We're going to see if we could hold above 184 to continue. If not, I think we retest 177. There might be a temporary dip coming. Rivian looks a little bit more bullish. It did dip before it tried to bounce. We were talking about a dip that was coming. There's a gap over here, so we're going to see if this bounces a little bit. This is a very similar setup as Tesla as well. We're looking for like a move closer to like the higher 17s. Then we'll see if we reject, but there might be a small bounce. SoFi has a left shoulder, head and right shoulder. We're going to see if we hold above our EMAs. If we don't, we could be looking for a dip back down towards 26.5. On AMD, we basically have a nice looking double bottom cup and handle. As long as we don't lose 220, we're looking for an attempt to push back up to 230. On ARM, we're basically forming a nice double bottom here. We have a nice inverse head and shoulders. There's a left shoulder, head, and a right shoulder forming. As long as we don't lose 139, we're looking for a push back up to 142. On PayPal, we're basically making lower highs here, so we could be dipping back down to the low 60s, and we'll see if we bounce. Coinbase is also consolidating. We have this resistance right here around this 277 area and support down here at 270. So I anticipate we consolidate for now, and we'll see if we get some kind of bounce. On Amazon, we're making lower highs here. We're going to see if we get back above 228. If we don't, we could be dipping back down to 225. Meta needs to hold 666. If we don't, we could be looking for a dip to 658. On Google, we have a double bottom here. We're going to see if 312 holds. If not, we're looking for a small bounce for 318, and we'll see how it goes. On Microsoft, we could be looking for a dip to 486, and we'll see if we bounce. And then Oracle is looking a bit more bullish. We basically have this 225 area as our resistance. We could go a bit higher, and we'll see if we turn back down from here. On Broadcom, we're looking a bit more bullish, looking for 402 as our resistance, and we'll see if we reject. On TJT, we have a bearish divergence double top, and we're going to see if this continues to fall back down to 10.8. The VIX is looking a bit more bullish. We're going to see if this is about to break out of this bullish falling wedge. However, there is a gap below. So we're going to see if this is about to break out from here. Sorry, if this is about to break out like this, or if we come down first and then we break out. It's going to be one of those two most likely, in my opinion. The 10-year is going up, and then the dollar is also starting to bounce for 99.2, and we'll see what happens. So that being said, for the markets, we're looking for a temporary bounce tomorrow before we potentially reject. Might see a small bounce before we turn back down if we make a lower high, and there is more downside risk. Tesla may also attempt to bounce a little bit back up to 442 to 445. And then we'll see if we get some kind of rejection near there. If not, it could be around 450. Look for a temporary bounce before we get some kind of rejection. And then once the market starts dipping, if we do get a big dip, guys, it's going to be a really good buying opportunity. Hope that makes as much sense as possible, but there is still some more downside risk. We could bounce a little bit tomorrow specifically, but then after that, there's going to likely be more downside. I hope that's as clear as possible. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll be back very soon tomorrow before market open for another update. Until then, I wish you all the best as always, and peace out.